Hello again! Thank you for joining me for part 2 of my Dramaturgy project. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the character of Juliet. Juliet Capulet is 13 years old and is the daughter of Capulet and Lady Capulet. She has a cousin named Tybalt, and she has a nurse who is like a mother figure to her, and she's just referred to as Nurse. Like I mentioned in my last video, we hear about Juliet before we actually get to meet her. In Act 1, Scene 2, Capulet and Paris are talking about marriage, and Paris is like, I want to marry Juliet. Capulet says, Juliet's not even 14, we should probably give her like 2 more years. Paris insists that, plenty of people get married when they're 13. And Capulet is like, okay, you're right, come to our party tonight, and you can talk to Juliet, and, if she's into it, and I'll give you my blessing. Capulet also says that Paris might find some girls hotter than his daughter at the party that he might be more interested in, which is kind of like weird. So at this point, we haven't met Juliet, and all we know about her is that she's 13, and she's like not the hottest girl in town. So we finally get to meet Juliet in Act 1, Scene 3. And just a little side note, the nurse says that Juliet's birthday is on Lammas Eve. According to Merriam-Webster, Lammas is like a holiday harvest festival that happens on August 1st. So that means her birthday is July 31st, the day before. And you know who else has a birthday on July 31st? So the very first conversation we see Juliet have is about marriage. She really doesn't say much other than she's not super interested, but she'll check Paris out at the party anyway. So in this scene, we see Juliet's 2 maternal figures sitting there and telling her she needs to start getting married because all of the other rich girls in Verona are, and you're still here, a virgin. It says maid, but that could mean virgin, right? It's funnier that way. And now we're finally at the scene where Romeo and Juliet actually meet, which is the party scene. I find it fascinating because we literally don't know what Juliet is doing until Romeo walks up to her. She's not mentioned by anyone else, she doesn't have any lines, and nowhere in the stage directions does it really say what she's doing. Romeo just is like, hey, who's that over there? And then he goes up to her and touches her hand, and then they're talking. Before this moment, before Romeo meets Juliet, Juliet has 2 lines. 2 lines! Hi, I'm editing the video and I just realized that Juliet has 5 lines before she meets Romeo, not 2. It's still not that many though. What's up with that? So I'm sure you're all shocked to hear that these 2 fall deeply in love with each other the second they lay eyes on each other. They kiss within a minute of meeting. And after they kiss, Juliet says to Romeo, "You kiss by the book." How would you know? How would you know? How would you know? Juliet, I know you don't know. You've never been kissed before. Don't try me. Juliet's been sheltered her whole life, and we'll see more evidence of that as I continue, but I know you weren't kissing anyone else, Juliet. They don't even know each other's names until they leave the party. Juliet finds out from the nurse that Romeo is a Montague, and she's shook. And that's the end of Act 1. Act 2 opens with a prologue from the chorus, and they mention that, Juliet is just as in love with Romeo as Romeo is her, but she doesn't have the same opportunity to, go out and meet with him. Because she's a child. She is 13. I assume Romeo's older because he just kind of wanders Verona and does his thing. But he's also a man, Women probably can't just walk around Verona and do their own thing, so. But yeah, she's 13, so, you're not gonna let your 13-year-old daughter out of the house unsupervised. Valid. It's valid. So Juliet's standing on her balcony, loudly talking to herself about how much she loves Romeo. And she hates that he's a Montague. And then Romeo appears, and then they are flirting it up. The balcony scene is really sweet. They're just head over heels in love with each other. I feel like this scene really shows the purity of the love between Romeo and Juliet. The nurse and Juliet's mother always talked about marriage and responsibility and having children, and on Romeo's side, Mercutio is always making sex jokes and all that stuff, so these two get to have this really nice, pure moment together, away from everyone else's expectations of what they should be. Juliet is the first one to bring up marriage, probably because it's all anyone talks to her about, and the plan is Juliet is gonna send a messenger to Romeo the following day, and if they still want to get married then, Romeo will send the messenger back with a time and a place. I think it's pretty mature of them to sleep on it, you know, all things considered. When we think about Romeo and Juliet, it's like, oh, they fall in love with each other so quickly. But they slept on it, you know, they gave it a little bit of thought. I also want to throw up this tweet that I always think about whenever I talk about the balcony scene. In Act 2, Scene 4, the nurse is talking to Romeo, and she says to him, "You better not be tricking her. She's really young, and it would be really mean of you to do that." And this once again just reiterates that Juliet has been sheltered her whole life. And we know that just by how people talk about her and to her. And I think the reason they fell for each other so quickly is because everyone else had all of these thoughts of what these people had to do and had to be. But with each other, they were just each other, you know? They were born into this feud and they're supposed to hate each other because their parents told them that. Things really start to go to shit when Romeo kills Tybalt. Capulet decides that Juliet and Paris are gonna get married later that week because there's been so much sadness around Tybalt's death that they need some cheering up. When Juliet is met with this news, she refuses and tells them that she's in love with Romeo. Her parents get really angry and storm away. This is a huge contrast to the Juliet we see in Act 1, who really doesn't speak unless spoken to. She's fighting against her parents, something she's probably never done before. But she knows deep down that they are her parents and they have a say in what's going on with her life. They control everything that's going on in her life. She can't even leave the house. Her parents have all of the power over her. Juliet runs to Friar Lawrence and threatens to kill herself. But Friar Lawrence is like, nah, I got a plan. Friar Lawrence presents her with a sleeping potion that'll make her look like she's dead. So then she'll be put in the tomb and Romeo can come and get her and then they can run away and live happily ever after. And Juliet is like, great, I see no flaws in this plan, let's do it. She goes home and she says to her parents, yeah, I'll marry Paris. And then she goes to bed and drinks the potion. The nurse finds her dead the next morning and everyone comes and Friar Lawrence is like, it's okay, she's in a better place now. Like, yeah, okay. Balthazar tells Romeo that Juliet is dead. Romeo's immediate reaction is to kill himself. And he plans to go to Juliet's tomb and do it there. Friar Lawrence tried to send a letter to Romeo explaining the situation, but the messenger was quarantined because he was stuck in a house that had the plague, which literally same. I'm filming this in quarantine right now. Friar Lawrence has no idea that Romeo's gotten any information. He thinks he's just completely in the dark and tries to send him another letter. It's a lot of them just missing each other in typical Shakespeare fashion. So we all know what happens next. Romeo kills Paris and then kills himself, which is really oversimplifying it, but I'm not here to give you a synopsis. Juliet wakes up when Friar Lawrence walks in and is freaked out. No shit. Friar Lawrence was like, I got you, B, don't kill yourself. And then she wakes up next to her dead hubby and her dead almost hubby. I would lose my mind too. Friar Lawrence tries to get her to leave the tomb, but he doesn't try really hard. He's just like, let's leave, and Juliet's like, no, and then he leaves. Juliet stabs herself and kills herself when she hears people approaching. Juliet met Romeo on Sunday and killed herself on Thursday. In the 5 days we know Juliet, I think she matures quite a bit. She seems kind of shy at the beginning of the play, just kind of letting everyone tell her what to do. And then she meets Romeo and her world changes. Someone is finally seeing her as a person and not an object. He's giving her all of this positive attention. Juliet is smart. At one point, she tells her mom that she loves Romeo in a way that her mom thinks that she's saying that she hates Romeo. She's outsmarting her own mom. I would argue that Juliet kind of shows the most character growth out of any character in this play. Maybe it's because she's the youngest and she has the most room to grow. She's not stuck in her ways like everyone else. She comes from this rich, wealthy family and is willing to give it all up to be with Romeo. She is putting her own happiness in front of everyone else's wants for her. And for that, I respect her. Now, I think Juliet gets a bad rap. Juliet is 13. This is her first love, and what does she even know of love anyway? The nurse literally nursed her instead of her mother. Am I getting too deep? Is that too much? I don't think Juliet killing herself was an act of weakness. I think that was her taking her life into her own hands after being controlled by everyone else. She's controlled by her parents because she's 13, but if she married Paris would then be controlling her for the rest of her life. So I think this was the only out she saw. And that's crazy depressing. Juliet deserved better. In conclusion, Juliet is really smart, and I think she was a victim of her circumstances. And I'll catch you next time with a script analysis of Romeo and Juliet. Thank you!